Hello, I'm Cat, and good news for anyone who's excited about the Creaking Canopies drop, because there is a brand new beta and preview for the Bedrock version of the game. It's called 1.21.50.28, which means it's the 8th beta for 1.21.50, but as friend of the channel Cracked Magnet points out, it's actually labelled on iOS as RC0. This could be a mistake, but if it is intentional, this means this is the first release candidate, which in software parlance means the version they're actually going to ship out the door if it's okay, and that is an incredible piece of news. And although I don't agree with the conclusion it'll be coming out in 2 weeks, I'll talk about when it actually will be releasing, if this is finally and good enough. But first, let's talk about what bugs they've actually fixed, so you can know what to expect in the winter drop, because obviously there's lots of wonderful new blocks which we've been seeing over the first few weeks of it, but at this point they're working on refining things. And so let's go into the Resin Temple. You might have seen me build this last Saturday, and you might now know that Harrison has filled it with some fun things from this week's preview. So what is really fun about the changelogs for Bedrock is more and more they seem to be listing things on the preview that don't function in the update, and a great example is this line on the changelog. I'll show you it so you can be extra sure it's in there. These brick blocks are now horizontally aligned with each other, but if we look in reality, you can see it actually isn't. The resin brick is just not aligned at all with the nether brick, and there is just a bit of a weird gap here in my opinion that makes this it just feels wrong in a way that I don't think is easily fixed. And so is that the correct solution? Is that the correct thing to put on the changelog? Probably not, but what is very good news, if we grab our very polished copper ingot and our slightly polished copper ingot, is the fact that we can actually take these right here and we can throw one of these into the... Oh my god, I should not have looked away from a creaking. We can throw one of these into our table right here, as you can see, and we can put our double matte copper ingot in there. But we can put our copper ingot in there just like we could before, but now we can put the resin brick in, which is something that is not possible on the Java edition, despite that being a mistake on the changelog there, or again, some issue with me, you might say. But yeah, there are more and more issues like this of changelogs, but it seems as though at the very least this is functioning on Bedrock, which is good news, I guess we could say. And so you know what else is very good news? Let's go into this place because there is a creaking and I don't want him to follow me. Let's talk about what is inside this update. So another big one is that eye blossoms will now open / close when snow logged, and skulk sensors will now detect eye blossoms opening and closing. This is actually a really cool change. I have no idea how you would use this, although it says Harrison has checked and it takes about 20 to 30 seconds. This is very, very interesting to me. Maybe we could like set it to sun. I guess it's like nighttime here, so it should be. Actually, we'll set it to daytime. So we set it to daytime. As the creakings die, these flowers should therefore close up, and it should activate the skulk sensor. Oh, that was interesting to see. Yeah, there was a little bit of a reaction there. It's a bit weird that they took some time to open, but as you can see, they do in fact activate the skulk, assuming it wasn't just something on the outside. Anyway, another interesting change is that mangrove leaves will change texture when fancy leaves is off. If we look at the bug report for this, you could see the problem before. It's that the mangrove leaves didn't have a second texture with no opacity. You would just see the black behind them. But now if we turn our fancy graphics to off, so in video there is a setting that everyone just has turned on, because why wouldn't you, for fancy graphics to turn off, and when you turn it off, they have a slightly different texture, which stops you... Wait, actually, do they? They're meant to have a slightly different texture. Fancy leaves, I guess, is what it's going to be. There we go. They've got a slightly different texture, and this makes them fully, 100% or 0% transparent, which means you can't see through them, and it looks much better than before. And honestly, I just assumed they had an ugly texture before. It's a great example of how to know about Minecraft bugs, you do need to already know what looks like a Minecraft bug and how the game should behave perfectly, just like how you should know that bees will no longer pollinate with closed eye blossoms. Closed eye blossoms will no longer poison bees, and feeding bees open eye blossoms will poison them, and theoretically a bee, if it were to feed on a open eye blossom, would also get poisoned. However, they try to go to sleep at night and so shouldn't really be impacted by that. But yeah, just in case I pick one of these up myself, as I sometimes might do, I can poison my bee, and I don't know why I would want to do that. I don't think he deserves it. But you know what he does deserve? The fact that if we have a pickaxe with fortune on it, we'll now be able to get more resin from breaking a creaking heart. Here's me breaking a creaking heart with my fist, or rather with my very polished copper ingot, which is definitely what this is. Very, very high quality, Harrison. I love it. As you can see, I'm going to get one resin clump, but if I use my fortune-free pickaxe on the very same creaking heart block, I'm not going to get one. Well, actually, theoretically, there's a small chance I do, but I'm going to get potentially up to 4. Oh, perfect. It happened the way I wanted it to. That was a rare chance, but that is something that will now happen. This means we now have, for the first time in a very long time, a reason to put fortune on your axes again, because if you're going to a pale forest that you never intend to come back to, then surely you could just use your axe with fortune, destroy all the creaking hearts, and then take some amount of resin with you. It is very destructive, and I would recommend Silk Touch, but we have a reason to use fortune at least. By the way, something I assume would be affected, because it affects creaking hearts, is I assume resin clumps when they were placed down. If you had fortune, you would get more, but obviously because they can be placed down again and again infinitely, this is not how it works, and so fortune is only good for the creaking heart blocks themselves, which most people won't be destroying, but still, a use for fortune on an axe is a very, very fun thing in my opinion. Next up, the slate, which you might recall was accidentally added to Education Edition, or rather accidentally added from Education Edition to the game, has been made no longer available, so this is what it would have looked like if it was very deep. Again, high quality name tag, give Harrison some credit there. Then we've also got resin trimmed armor, now uses resin ingots instead of resin clumps. This is what I just mentioned, and I think it's incredible that they actually did it. It actually works here, and I wanted to know if, like Java, it would tell me, no, that doesn't work if I use a clump. So here is my silence armor trim, here is my Neverite boots, and here is a clump. As you can see, it doesn't let me use it because it just lets me use the correct one, my very polished copper ingot, which is definitely the correct name for it. We could actually use a resin brick just in case there's one person out there who hasn't watched a single other preview video and is getting confused. This is a resin brick, which is made from the resin clumps, and yeah, you can use these to get really, really cool looking boots. Look at these boots. Don't they look incredible? Honestly, Silence Armor Trim plus Resin might be the new best in the game, which I love as a theory. Speaking of theories, Creakings now have a new sway sound and new attack sounds, so we can show this off using a Creaking spawn egg. Usually you can't, but if we throw one in there, we can listen to him. Can you do some new things? I guess we'll let him attack us. Come on, I'm looking away from you, man. What more do you need? Okay, he can't. Fun fact, the Creaking can't attack you when you're on a fence above it. He can only attack from a certain distance above, and that is a useful fact to know. So what I'm going to do, by the way, is I'm going to maybe break one of these fences. I'm going to cause some havoc on myself, but now he can attack me. There we go. Do you hear that? Man, he is slow at attacking, huh? It's a nice sound, though, I've got to say. And because he was spawned from a spawn egg, we can kill him in one hit. Obviously not true for the regular Creakings. But yeah, he also has new swaying sounds when they're just sitting there, which is very, very fun. Speaking of very, very fun, heads can now be placed without a supporting block. I think this is a much-needed change. So if I want to have a dragon head go on my wall, I don't have to place one down below it. Very, very cool if you ask me. I think lots of blocks in Minecraft have weird requirements for stuff like this, and I've never really fully understood them. Really, really cool bug fix there. And then the sky horizon will now be darker if it's raining in a pale garden. They fix clients sometimes not matching the server's rain. Does this mean no fake rain on realms? Oh my god, I cannot clarify this enough. I play my long-term survival on a realm, and it's always raining in a way that isn't real, and it's very confusing. And yeah, I want to just go for a few more weird bug fixes that you might not have heard about. Moss blocks will have a quieter step and land sound. The sides of pale moss carpets are now shaded correctly. This is another example of one of those bugs where if you know, some people will say like, oh, it's so lazy that Mojang couldn't fix this until just now, you know, like you might be thinking like, yeah, they're missing out on such obvious things like the mangrove leaves, but for another example of something that's really weird and you wouldn't think about is the side of a pale carpet. You know, the 0.25 block thick side was not previously showing the cracking animation when you broke it, and also it wasn't shaded correctly. No one would have noticed looking at it unless you like crouched and perfectly looked at it, but that has now been fixed. Also, managing to kill a wildebeest or silverfish in one hit no longer angers nearby mobs of the same type. That is true, but it always was true for silverfish, and so I think that's a bit of an interesting one. But the most important one, this is huge, because this isn't something that takes a genius to work out, but it's huge that they fixed it anyway, is that they have made it so that managing to kill a zombie piglin in one hit, i.e. using smite, will no longer anger nearby zombie piglins. So yeah, basically they have done a lot of very nice small fixes, and so even if somehow you didn't care about the pale garden, you never intended to trade with a wandering trader or go there or do anything like that, you know, some number of people are going to say that's true. If that is you, then you are going to appreciate the bug fixes that come in this, but for most people I feel like there's a lot of fun features in here which you might be able to appreciate. So at this point it's worth mentioning, oh, Toycat, you said it was release candidate 0. Does that mean we're getting this update in 2 weeks like Crack Magnet said? Well, I would say that, you know, like I do respect Crack Magnet a lot, but I would also say that we put together a little spreadsheet of the time it takes from the last beta and preview to come out to the end release of a update, and as you can see looking at this, when it comes to 1.21 and when it it comes to other major updates, or rather, let's just say when it comes to these small ones, you can see that there is a very clear gap of about 2 weeks and 6 days. Sometimes it's 2 weeks and 5 days if they release on a Thursday, but it's just under 3 weeks for a normal beta or normal update, and then it seems as though for the bigger updates, it's closer to 4 weeks, 3 weeks and 5 days, etc. So with the Creaking canopies drop, with the winter drop, I would imagine that it might fall into that second category, and so therefore, when is it releasing? Next December 2nd, but that all relies, I would also say, there's a lot of assumptions that have to be made here, because we're in uncharted territory. Minecraft has never released a half update like this before, since the advent of the new system of Minecraft updates, and so we don't know if they consider this to be basically a sub-update that just contains content, or whether this is a major update that just contains half as much content. You know, is this a bigger small drop, or is this a smaller big update released in half the time? That's sort of down to perspective, but there's a lot more that you probably have to consider. Oh, fun. Thank you, Harrison. I found your stairway to nowhere. Okay, yeah, I should not have been so distracted by that, but what I can say is, man, I do not like phantoms, huh? But what I can say with pretty, certainty is the fact that there is a big wrench in the idea of, even if we know it's 2 or 3 weeks, let's say, or realistically 3 or 4 weeks, because it's 3 weeks, 2 days, 2 weeks, 3 days. But I think that even if we happen to know exactly the number of weeks that it takes, which we don't know if this is the only release candidate. Minecraft Java goes through lots of release candidates, and although we don't know if Bedrock is going to go through some that they don't release to the public, I think that they might say there is something they're unhappy with in this one, maybe the resin brick texture, let's say, and so maybe they are going to fix that before the end update. Are they going to? Again, we don't know, but once we see that they've stopped releasing 1.20, 1.50 betas and previews, and indeed, maybe if they start releasing 1.20, 1.60s, we'll know that means that our time has started, and so that is when we'll know the release date of this update, when they are finished with the betas and previews that are public for this, and start on the ones that are public for the next update. Speaking of which, again, on Bedrock happens in 1 week. On Java, you might be waiting a little while for that, but that's the fun thing about Minecraft, isn't it? Speaking of fun things about Minecraft, I hope you have enjoyed today's video talking about the updates. I hope that you're excited for the Creaking canopies. I personally really am. I think having a big drop of content in the winter is something we're so unused to, and it brings me back to the console edition days. I think this is objectively a good thing, and I'm very excited to see. I'm not going to check it. I've seen what's up there. I'm excited to see, and hopefully you are too. Thank you for watching. I have had a very crazy week, by the way, but I'm finally done with jury service, and so I'm going to take some time to recenter on the channel, but soon we should have some very fun things coming out, including a video essay I've been trying to work on for literally weeks now about how Mojang has a favorite version of Minecraft, and all Java players get it wrong about which version that is. But we'll talk about that some other time. For now, thank you very much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll be you all next time. Oh, I didn't mean to kill you. Just like how I don't mean to kill you, but greater than 99% of house fires happen to people who aren't subscribed, so, you know, do your own maths. Goodbye.